Okay, I'm back again. Hello, everybody. This is Sharonda, and this is my podcast as well as YouTube studio, Spiritual Sense. Today is Wednesday, which is August the 31st. And as I promised, I was going to speak on the topic in regard to spiritual interference because I recorded my daily reading for today, and that topic came about in the reading. So I like to state that this podcast, as well as this YouTube presentation, is for entertainment purposes. So in this podcast is an open social discussion in regards to the paranormal, occult, supernatural. I speak on topics in regards to UFOs. I give my account of what I feel UFOs are, third eye opening, remote viewing. Um, I also speak in regards to angels, demons, spirit guides, um, near death experiences, out of body experiences. I also go over New Age belief systems and practices such as white magic, black magic, voodoo, hoodoo, human cannibalism, Santeria, Satanism, Wiccan, witchcraft. And so I'm going to get into the topic for today, which is spiritual interference. Now, spiritual interference, I feel, is different than a psychic attack. Um, if you've been following me or listening to many of my episodes that I've done, a psychic attack is where there is a battle for the mind, where things may present to you to attack the mind, to which whether you question your sanity, and if you begin to believe everything that presents to you, then it will take over and you will develop what we know here or refer here as mental illness. So that's basically what psychic attack is. It can infiltrate in our time and space from a different time and place. Now, what I'm speaking about today is in reference to spiritual interference. This is when it's similar, but it's different. Like spiritual interference, um, is I did the daily reading when I mentioned about identity and soul searching and want to reflect on a time and a space. And, when you begin to become curious, such as, wanting to know your history and the roots of your history culturally and spiritually even, you will begin to get an influx of energy that comes into um, your existence. So if you're someone who perhaps may be multicultural, where you have various different, um, nationalities, ethnicities, or multiple race within your family history or family bloodline or lineage, and you begin to become curious, where you're going to have all that energy come at you all different times of types of the matter. And sometimes it can be confusing when you have a lot of energy that comes towards you. It can be hard to differentiate as to who it comes from. You don't know who to talk about, you don't know who to confide in, you don't know who to trust, you don't, everything is garbled. And that's understandable. And I think in essence is for you to rely on God, for you to rely on the supernatural or the unthinkable, something that you would never fathom. And as a result, when we are like that, we have no other choice but to rely on spirituality. When things that presents to us are unfavorable or questionable or a little bit fuzzy or confusing. And so in essence, God will put things into perspective for you, and He will show you and show many individuals as to how I operate and how I work. And this is by way of spiritual interference. You would get you know, spirits from your family history and past to come in, and they will interfere into your existence. Okay. So I pulled up some information here. Entities and interference. It's quite a bit of information, and I'm not going to go into a lot of this information because I don't want to confuse people, because I have done several, psychic attack, spiritual manifestation, all of that can go along the lines of what I'm mentioning, but it's a difference in how it and the timing, not only the timing and the context of how it happens. Okay. So it says entities and interference defined within the more unconventional healing modalities and esoteric practices. There is often a reference to entities and interference, sometimes referred to collectively as interdimensional interference. But what are entities and do they really exist? From our experience within the modality of energy healing, external forces do have the potential to impact on our life's journey. It would certainly simplify our work if we could place all such forces under the one label, but unfortunately, it's not that straightforward. When you delve into what we are as humans, you will begin to realize the complexities involved. You also begin to recognize that most of what practitioners call entity attachment is actually self created. Having said that, there is definitely that there can definitely be the involvement of external influence. The level of that involvement and the impact created can vary enormously. This is why we sometimes refer to such forces as interdimensional interference rather than the normal focus on entities. So I'm going to stop right here because I don't like to. I did choose to click on this and set out this website, but there's always a need to blame things on individuals. Um, Interference. When you are curious and you want to know, that will perpetuate a lot of that energies in, because of curious, as I mentioned, Curious George, you know, as it mentions Pandora's box, when you begin to tattle over, it will present itself. But there are times where this is the culture or the norm. So whether you delve in it, you could just simply go to it and it's already there. So you don't necessarily have to indulge into anything for it to be already manifested or have already presented itself. You may just so happen to gravitate to it. So you can open up portals to another sensibility when you are curious to do so. Then there's times when you just gravitate to it. Okay. So, as defined, it says interference could be described as any influence that limits, distorts, or openly disrupt the life experience or behavior of a being, crossing multiple planes of reality. Many of these influences can move or operate across multiple dimensions to affect the person. This is regardless of whether or not the person is aware of that interference or believes in its existence. Exactly. I just mentioned that. So whether you believe in it or not is already there. So a spiritual manifestation is there. But once you begin to get to a certain point in time in life where you become curious or you want to know, then you will be pulled. The spirit will gravitate to it because this is your curiosity. This is what I'm dealing with. This is what I want to know. So that's basically what that is. It works the same way when you become curious about a time and a space, particularly if you are someone who began like me just recently. I've always been a person that wonder about history, like things that happened in the beginnings. But in terms of getting more so into African history, African American history, Black American history, because of this, I do feel as though you will begin to see things differently. Like God will gravitate you to things that you wonder about. And in essence, it's kind of like a reenactment. Sometimes you will begin to find that the people may be aware that they are reenacting, a time and space, but there are times when they are not aware, and God will make that apparent to you how they're being used to formulate your thoughts. Like we are sometimes the thoughts of others. We're carrying out the thoughts of others, things that they may have wondered about or inquired about or wanted to know. Okay. And this is how God uses us. You want to be right, and try to be straight laced as possible, because it can work in a favorable sense as well as an unfavorable sense. Okay. Interference covers a broad range of influences affecting our human journey. This, of course, includes the phenomena of entities, which in itself is an all encompassing term some people use to describe various external forces or phenomena. The level of intelligence or consciousness of interfering energies covers a wide range. Once interfering energies takes form, we refer to it as an entity. An entity may originate from some other realm or planet or be created by us. As opposed to interference or misguided energy, an entity has an agenda and commonly recognizes that it impacts other beings. It does not acknowledge the rights of free will and may even be deceptive in order to gain entrapment or free will of choice. So that is true. I mean, that is true. You have bad, unfavorable entities. You have favorable entities. So you have good, bad, black, white, contrast. So are all entities good? No, not necessarily. And that's why when you begin to have that spiritual interference, where those entities or forces or energies from another time and space begin to permeate, when you're curious about something, they will come in. And as you have the many sicknesses and sins of this time and space, it works the same way in that spiritual realm. So let's say, for instance, if you're someone that has a vice or struggle with alcoholism, to say that, you know, well, you will be geared towards that. Like that will be something that it seems like it's something that you can never turn against. You will always be gravitated towards that. So that's why you will have to begin to work on the mind and develop a relationship with God to where He can assist you with whatever those battles or those guilty pleasures or vices that you may be having with, struggling with. Okay. So I'm not going to go so much into um, this here, but it's just basically circumvent or reaffirm some of the things that I mentioned in regards to how vibrational energy works, how life works. Whatever you're receptive to, when you become curious about something, you would gravitate to it oftentimes. Um, we are the thoughts of others. I do feel as though that although we learn in reference to that time and space, it works the same way with that time and space in reference to us. Like they are able to come around and see how I was deceived in this time in existence. And as I mentioned before, when I did a podcast, when I spoke about angels and demons, I said, when you begin to see angels as we see them depicted in our time and space, oftentimes this is God letting you know what they didn't do for you. And to give more clarity in reference to that is it could be very deceptive, meaning the things that they was told in their time and space are different in this time and space. So, like I referenced in my tarot card reading, what I just mentioned in reference to, say for instance, things that they died of a time ago. People readily just, simply take a medicine or a tonic or whatever, and then they go on about the day. But you have had thousands and perhaps even millions, died of that very thing that you take for granted. So this is why they begin to study us and oversee what the things that was told and done in our time frame, but what is going on now. So you are the thoughts of others, meaning you are the thoughts of that other existence in reference to when they was here in this time and space. And when you begin to transition on, you will begin to see it as such as well. The things that you thought, when I had my life's review, when I had my spiritual awakening, and I had my life's review, it was shown to me as I lay and had all these different things flash before my eyes and my mind's eye that the perspective and how you see and view things in this life, you begin to see it in another sensibility, a different perspective from every other person's point of view. And oftentimes we can be misled or misguided. And you begin to look at circumstances of your life, different events of your life in another different view. And the things that was being conveyed was simply not that. Okay. So it's a food for thought. It's something more um apart from what you know and understand. To ask God to guide your footsteps and by way of your spirit guides, and He will not lead you astray, provided that you are within reasonable means. Okay. So I am going to conclude this uh YouTube presentation as well as Spreaker podcast in regards to spiritual interference. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you are welcome to comment below. Until then, you have a safe and wonderful day. Good day.